Beyond Watkin, Richard suddenly discovered the source of the little girlish giggle that greeted Reg's conjuring trick. Astonishingly enough, it was a little girl. She was about 8 years old, with blonde hair and a glum look. She was sitting, occasionally kicking pettishly at the table leg. "Who's that?" Richard asked Reg in surprise. "Who's what?" Reg asked Richard in surprise. Richard inclined a finger surreptitiously in the direction of the girl, he whispered. "The very, very little girl. Is it some new maths professor?" Reg peered round at her. "Do you know?" he said in astonishment. "I haven't the faintest idea. Never known anything like it. How extraordinary." At that moment, the problem was solved by the man from the BBC, who suddenly wrenched himself out of the logical half-Nelson into which his neighbours had got him and told the girl off for kicking the table. She stopped kicking the table and instead kicked the air with redoubled vigour. He told her to try and enjoy herself, so she kicked him. This did something to bring a brief glimmer of pleasure into her glum evening, but that didn't last. Her father briefly shared with the table at large his feelings about babysitters who let people down, but nobody felt able to run with this topic. "A major season of books to do," resumed the director of music, "is of course clearly long overdue. I'm sure you'll be looking forward to remedying this situation at the first opportunity." Yes, replied the girl's father, spilling his soup. That is, he's not the same one as Gluck, is he? The girl kicked the table leg again. When her father looked sternly at her, she put her head on one side and mouthed the question at him. "Not now," he insisted at her, as quietly as he could. "When then?" "Maybe later. Later, we'll see." She hunched grumpily back in her seat. "You always say later," she mouthed at him. "Poor child," murmured Reg. "There isn't a Don at this table who doesn't behave exactly like that in the inside. Ah, thank you." Their soup arrived, distracting his attention and Richard's. "So, tell me," said Reg, after they had both had a couple of spoonfuls and arrived independently at the same conclusion that it was not a taste explosion. "What have you been up to, my dear chap? Something to do with computers? I understand, and also to do with music. I thought you read English when you were here, though only I realise, in your spare time." He looked at Richard significantly over the rim of his soup. "Now wait," he interrupted before Richard even had a chance to start. "Don't I vaguely remember that you had some sort of computer when you were here? When was it? 1977? Well, what we called a computer in 1977 was really a kind of electric abacus, but..." "Oh, now, don't underestimate the abacus," said Reg. "In skilled hands, it's a very sophisticated calculating device. Furthermore, it requires no power, can be made with any materials you have to hand, and never goes bing in the middle of an important piece of work." So an electric one would be particularly pointless," said Richard. "True enough," conceded Reg. Really wasn't a lot of this machine could do that you couldn't do yourself in half the time, less trouble." "But, on the other hand, very good at being a slow and dim-witted pupil," said Richard. Reg looked at him quizzically. "I had no idea they were supposed to be in short supply," he said. "I could hit a dozen with a bread roll from where I'm sitting." "I'm sure, but look at it this way. What really is the point of trying to teach anything to anybody?" This question seemed to provoke a murmur of sympathetic approval from up and down the table. Richard continued. "What I mean is that you really want to understand something, the best way to try and explain it to someone else. That forces you to sort it out in your own mind, and the more slow and dim-witted your pupil, the more likely you have to break things down into more simple ideas, and that's really the essence of programming."